Am I the a-hole stories? Am I the a-hole for losing it after my wife wanted my daughter to stop using the bathroom in the house? My wife and I have been together for 3 years. I have a daughter from my previous marriage, she's 14. I also have a stepson who tends to be rude at times, but civil enough around adults. He's 16. He and his stepsister get along well. No arguing, no yelling, even better than most siblings I know, which is great, and it's quite a relief to see them loving and respecting each other. We have 2 bathrooms in the house. My daughter only uses the smaller one. Since it's always available, unlike the main bathroom that my stepson and wife often use. I've recently received some money and decided to renovate the small bathroom that my daughter uses since she complained about things needing to be fixed. I started the renovation 2 days ago, while my daughter uses the main bathroom as an alternative. There were no issues until my wife pulled me aside saying my daughter's been leaving period products inside the bathroom, and it wasn't right because my stepson would see them. I asked my wife for more clarification, and turns out my daughter gets rid of her used pads by putting them in the trash can inside the bathroom. I told my wife there was nothing wrong with that, so what's the problem? She gave me a look, called me ignorant, then dropped it. This morning she looked upset and told me my stepson went inside the bathroom after my daughter got out, and probably saw her used pads in the bathroom. I asked if she meant the trash can and it was confirmed. She then proceeded to tell me to ask my daughter to stop using the main bathroom even though the small one is still in the process of being renovated. I absolutely lost my cool, and told her she was making a ridiculously unreasonable demand. Told her it's my daughter's house too. Where is she supposed to go if she can't use both bathrooms? We started arguing back and forth until she said she'd talk to her, but I told her to stop it. She just kept giving me the cold shoulder for hours now, even though my stepson said nothing about this issue as she claims it to be. My wife said she was trying to be a parent, but I treat her as an outsider to my daughter. That's not true. I might have been harsh on her, but in my opinion she wasn't trying to parent, she was being unreasonable. I might be wrong, but I just don't see her point. Am I the a-hole here? My wife is an incredibly private person, but that doesn't mean she can get others to follow. To answer your question, the trash can we have has a lid. It's a step-on trash can that doesn't require hands. My stepson isn't even aware of what his mom's talking about. He can barely look around as he always has his phone glued to his face and he doesn't pay attention to anything. Now for the top comments. My wife said she was trying to be a parent, but I treat her as an outsider to my daughter. She was trying to parent the wrong kid. Daughter didn't leave the used products on the toilet tank or seat, it was in the trash. Wife should use this as a good teaching moment for her son. Not the a-hole. And good on you. It doesn't sound like the son actually has an issue with it, just that his mother thinks it might be a problem for him. Which makes this whole situation even more ridiculous. Are those helicopter blades I hear? Not the a-hole. Her son lives in a world in which people who menstruate exist. He's going to have to deal with it. There's nothing wrong with him seeing a box of tampons or pads. I would say if you don't have a bin with a lid, I'd advise getting one. Much nicer for bathroom bins to have lids. Used pads should also get wrapped up in the next pads wrapper or some toilet paper. Mainly because this stops them from sticking to the side of the bin. Your daughter having her period is totally natural and she shouldn't be relegated to another bathroom because of it. What does your wife do with her products? Hide them? Dunno, but I suspect the drains need unclogging a lot. Not the a-hole. Your wife is raising her son to be one of those weird dudes who has a gag reflex when he hears the word tampon. I would tell him fine, but I'm taking the toilet paper out because my daughter knows you wipe your butt with it, and that's disgusting. Since I guess we're all being freaks about human body functions. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my ex-husband he does not get to demand I take his stepdaughter into my home? I, 35 female, have 2 children with my ex-husband. Our son is 15 and our daughter is 12. He left me when I was pregnant with our daughter but remained an active parent to our children. 6 years ago, he met and married his wife who has a daughter the same age as ours. From pretty early on, my daughter has had issues with her stepsister. They share a room at my ex's and my daughter has told me whenever she's there, her stepsister wants them to do nothing but hang out together, that she was upset she didn't want to share their clothes and stuff with each other and would wake her up in the middle of the night to talk. She said her dad encouraged her to enjoy having a sister. I encouraged her to speak to her stepsister about hanging out sometimes, but also wanting to do their own things. This never worked, and pretty soon their stepsister was wanting to come to my house. I never allowed that because my daughter didn't want her intruding in our home, but I did take them all to the park a couple of times, and it was obvious the girl was fixated on my daughter and being her friend. Going so far as grabbing her the last time and pulling her away from other kids that my children were playing with. X was annoyed I wouldn't encourage it more, but I told him I did not like how she was with our daughter. My daughter has grown to really dislike her stepsister, and I intervened to make sure they were never placed in the same class in school, which the teacher was actually agreeable to because the teacher they did share that first year was also not happy with how clingy she was with my daughter and noticed the discomfort. Over the years, it has gotten to the point my ex's stepdaughter wants to actually come to my house for the entire week my kids are with me. I would never consider it, but to me, it's strange she would want to come to stay with a relatively strange, to her, adult. So anyway, my daughter's birthday is coming up in a couple of months, and my ex asked if I would let his stepdaughter sleep over to celebrate our daughter's birthday, or send her to them for the day/night because her stepsister wants them to have a party together. I said no. He told me it wasn't fair, and that I wasn't helping the relationship. This was something that came up with my daughter before, and she told me she does not want to have her stepsister invited to any birthday celebrations here. So, I was more than comfortable saying no. My ex told me he was telling me I needed to pick one of the two options. I told him he can't make demands like that. He said I am being a witch to a little girl who wants to celebrate her sister, and I have refused to let her into my home for far too long. I told him it's my right to refuse that, and he can't demand that any more than he can demand I choose between two options for her birthday. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Also, your daughter is getting old enough to decide where she wants to live. She can actually decide to live with you permanently and only visit dad when she wants. I think when kids reach their teen years, the courts will take the kids' choices into account when going over the visitation/custody parts of the divorce decree. Something to look into and take into consideration. As your daughter gets older, she'll likely want to stop doing the back and forth thing. As a young adult whose parents separated when I was 8, I went back and forth between my mom and dad for years, 1 week with mom/1 week with dad. It wasn't until high school that I decided to live with my mom full-time and see my dad on the weekends here and there, and honestly, my life got so much easier. I was able to focus on school and have stability and a routine, and I wasn't constantly packing up each week and living out of a suitcase. I would always stress to my parents that I didn't mind going back and forth, and it definitely turned me into a very laid-back, go-with-the-flow kind of person, but it gets harder as you get older. I would have absolutely benefited from doing it sooner, but I felt too guilty choosing between my parents. Long story short, give it time. Your daughter could very well decide she wants to come live with you full-time, and until then, you're not the a-hole. This stepsister sounds like she has real issues. Also, I'd recommend having your daughter talk to a counselor or therapist if you can. This is a ton to be going through at her age, and she's in a very precarious position that probably none of her friends or anyone else in her life can relate to. Just having an outside party to talk to can be so comforting, and will do wonders for her mental health as she reaches adulthood. Not the a-hole. This level of attachment is not normal and should not be encouraged. I'm not saying there's anything dangerously wrong with the stepsister, but she has clearly formed an unhealthy attachment to your daughter, and instead of seeing that for what it is, your ex is framing it as a sisterly bond with your daughter, and you in the wrong for not doing what he deems to be enough to encourage it. Your daughter is more than old enough now to be clear about who she wants to spend time with and for how long. She has been very clear that she does not want this level of interaction with her stepsister. I think it's time to talk to your daughter about her living arrangements again, and see if she'd like to start living with you on a more full-time basis. Depending on where you live, 12 should be old enough for the courts to start giving that serious weight in the custody arrangements. As I'm sure you know, doing this will likely anger your ex, but everything I'm reading tells me that your daughter needs some serious space from her stepsister. Our local jurisdiction does not take the kids' wishes on board until 14, sometimes 13. And when she turns 13, I will absolutely ask her if she wants that. But I won't move too fast because it would throw money away for no reason, and could make things more tricky. I know she would love to not stay at her dad's at all. She has talked about it before because she really does not want to share a room with her stepsister anymore. She hates it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my brother use my holiday home, even though my ex said he could? My ex and I always went to the same part of the country for a holiday a few times a year, so we decided to buy a small cottage in the area to save us having to get a new place to stay every time. When we split, I got the cottage, and he got the flat we lived in the rest of the time. He still lives there, while I rent a separate place and only use the cottage for holidays with the kids. He was/is friends with my brother. My brother and I do not get on, and he's closer with X than he ever was with me. My brother apparently spoke to X, and asked if he could use the cottage. X said yes. Brother texted me saying that X said he could use the cottage, and he asked me for the combo to the key safe. I responded that he hasn't asked me if he can use it, and he can't. He said that X said he could use it. I said it's not X's house. He said that he already arranged to get out of town for a bit on the provision that he could use the cottage, as he needs to lay low for a while. I said that was unfortunate and he'd have to undo it or take a staycation. Brother says he's set aside the time and resources to go, and my refusal is going to mess up his whole plan. I said that's unfortunate, but he didn't ask me. He then asked me if he could use the house, and I again said no. He asked why not? I said because it's my house, and I said no. He asked if I was using it and I said no, but that doesn't mean he can. He said I was being a selfish prick for no reason, and that as I'm not currently using the cottage, it should be fine for him to stay for a bit. I said no again. I've now got him, all but one of our siblings, we are 2 of 5, and Dad agreeing that I'm an a-hole, and that I need to let him use the cottage. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. If X is so happy to give away other people's homes, then your brother is free to stay in X's flat instead. Or better yet, send a bill in advance saying you'll need to be paid in full before you'll give the code. My worry is brother is going to go break the door down and stay anyway. You should tell your brother, no, you can't use the cottage, but if you need somewhere to go then you have my permission to go to my old apartment, the one your ex got. Anyone else find it interesting that brother went to X for permission, but still knew they had to go to sister for the code? Huh? X gave permission for brother to use something that no longer belongs to X, and when it falls through, you get the blame. I don't think so. X was a douche for not letting brother know that the cottage isn't his anymore, and brother is also a douche for the way he tried to guilt you into letting him use the cottage. Not the a-hole. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for walking out of the room when my wife begins blaming me for things she chose to do? For context, my 31 male wife, 29 female, suffers from PTSD, but she prefers to only treat it holistically with therapy. This doesn't work extremely well in my opinion. 7 years together, 3-year marriage, a 3-year-old kid together. Anyways, I'll give an example from this weekend. So, we're eating dinner that night and I tell her that I sent her dad a text with my condolences for his daughter, yes, her sister, being in the hospital with COVID for the past week. It came out of the perspective of being a parent myself more than anything. Alright, well, wife has a lot of jealousy towards her sister and is the perpetual victim of her parents' decisions all day every day. As the black sheep and scapegoat of the family, as she sees it, she believes her parents and her sister are just eating up this sort of attention. Yep, I know she's demonstrating a lot of toxic behavior here. After I spilled the beans about the text message I sent to her dad out of kindness, and because I thought it was the right thing to do, she gets very angry. I take her by the ice cream show we agreed to go to for the kids after we ate, and she didn't want to go inside with me. She didn't want to tell me what she wanted. She didn't want to go in by herself. At this point, I say screw it and just go inside, and get what our kids wanted and come back out. As I'm leaving the parking lot, I come to a stop at a stop sign and she unbuckles herself and hops out the car. She walks over to a nearby curb and sits down in the 38-degree rain. I back the car up and wait inside the car for her to either get up and get in the car, or to drop her angry walls and begin to cry. She wanted to argue while I was sitting there, but I refused to participate in the argument. She finally started crying, so I got out and immediately helped her into the car. We aren't able to make it by the smoke shop for her to get any disposable vaporizers because it's so late that they've now closed. When we get home, she locks herself in the bathroom and cries. I go in there and ask her to talk to me about what exactly is bothering her, to which she begins blaming me for allowing her to get out of the car in the parking lot, not getting any ice cream, and not getting another puffer, disposable vaporizers or e-cigs, whatever. After she got it all out, I simply said I'm not going to participate in a conversation that I am being blamed for things that you chose to do this evening, and I calmly walked out of the room. This felt empowering, but I also felt kinda like a jerk about it. I don't know. What do y'all think? Not the a-hole. She's excessively toxic and this will affect the kids, So please, for their sake, either insist she gets actual help for her mental issues, or separate. This behavior wouldn't be acceptable from your children, but she's teaching them it's okay. Info: who diagnosed her PTSD and has she ever had therapy/medication to treat her mental health? She's definitely got the PTSD, my friend. You're looking at a severe trauma survivor there. Not something I ever question. She's shared plenty about it and it's certainly real. She's seen therapists in the past and took some medication before, but she doesn't like the way they make her feel, so she quits them all pretty quick. Well, except for the fun ones, of course, Xanax in particular, but she ends up abusing those. Not the a-hole. There is much we don't know about her or her diagnosis, but I don't necessarily think that behaving like a 3-year-old is a symptom of PTSD. She should be learning some skills, it's often called toolbox, to use instead of this kind of behaviors. I would have considered that therapy 101. How long has she been doing therapy for? I've assumed it's long, but if she's still in the early stages, then sure, there's much to work on. Yeah, I completely agree. I know she does some advanced techniques that are supposed to help with PTSD, but her therapist has moved into the friend zone with her now, so I don't know. The crazy thing is that, if I were to tell someone like a friend of hers or something about this, she'd completely deny it. Not the a-hole. Refusing to engage with someone who won't even retell events accurately, is probably your best bet right now. Have you considered couples counseling? Yep, she has refused to go through all of our problems in the past, and when I suggested it a couple of months ago. And that's it for this video, guys. If you have thoughts to share, leave a comment below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you like this content. I'll catch you in the next one. Good day, everyone.